Hello and welcome to Dressmaking Amore. In this video we're going to be creating this beautiful Margot dress. With elegant ruffles and a placket detail as well as the beautiful bishop sleeves, this dress is a detailed but rewarding project and such a treat to wear. If you'd like to make this dress as well, please check out the link in the description for the sewing pattern that we'll be using. Here are the materials needed. Around 2.5 meters of lightweight woven fabric, or about 3 yards, 1 meter of fusible interfacing, 8 buttons, though I only use 7, elastic 1 centimeter wide and around 1 meter long, buttonhole machine foot, a seam ripper, matching thread, glass head pins, scissors, and the pattern. For this dress I chose a really pretty pink gingham seersucker fabric. It's a lightweight fabric and will work perfectly for the full sleeves and the ruffles on the bottom of the dress. I go over how much fabric you need and my recommendations in more detail in the pattern instructions, which come along with your sewing pattern. Before we get started, please click that like button down below and subscribe for more dressmaking videos. Let's begin! Here are our pattern pieces: the back, the front, the sleeves, 4 pieces of the front placket, the first layer of the ruffle with the back on fold, and the second layer of the ruffle with the back having a center seam. Make sure to mark all of the notches on the paper pattern and your fabric. For the darts, the first thing I do is cut out a little triangle on the point so I can transfer it to the fabric. Transfer the dart point to both pieces of the front. Pin the dart matching all of the marks. And then sew the darts. Start 1 centimeter before your point, sewing right along the edge, and then smoothly go into a diagonal to meet your notch. This way there's no puckering and the dart perfectly follows the shape of the bust. And do the same to the other dart. Press the darts, giving them the right shape. I use the corner of my board here to help. At the top edge of the front first ruffle, sew 2 gathering seams about 5 millimeters apart. Set your sewing machine to the gathering stitch to the max, and do the same for the back first ruffle piece as well. Mark the center of the ruffle and mark the center of the front bodice piece. Then pin the ruffle to the bottom edge of the front, right sides together, first at the sides and then at the center. Pull the 2 bottom threads of the seams to make a nice gathering, matching the length of the bodice. And don't forget to evenly distribute our gathers to make sure it looks pretty. We'll do the same thing to the back bodice piece and the ruffle. Mark the center of the back bodice piece, and since it's longer, I mark the quarters as well. Pin the back ruffle, matching the marks, and evenly distribute the gathering. Sew the ruffle to the front and the back bodice pieces. Then finish the edges of the seam. I'm using a serger here. Press the ruffle seam and cool it down using a clapper. Sew the center seam of the back ruffle. For the second ruffle gathering, I'm going to use a different technique. My fingers here are pushing the fabric under the machine foot as I'm sewing with a gathering or basting stitch. If I need, I can gather the ruffle even more when I'm ready to pin this to the bodice piece. I like to use this method when I need to gather a longer ruffle with more fabric. Pin this ruffle to the first level, matching up at the center and quarter marks, and pin in between. Pin the back ruffle in the same way as well. Then sew the second ruffle to the front and the back and serge the seam. Press this new ruffle seam that we have and cool it down. Pin the shoulder seams. Pin the side seams as well, matching up all of our marks and the ruffle seams to make sure they're even with each other. Sew both the shoulder seams and the side seams. And then serge the shoulder seams and side seams. While we're here, we're going to serge the hem of the dress as well. Press the shoulder seams and the side seams, cooling them down. Sew the side seam of the sleeve and serge. Press the seam towards the back side. And here's the little tip. The back is where our double notch is on the armhole. I saw here that I need to even out that little corner on the sleeve hem, so let's take care of that. Fold the edge of the sleeve in towards the wrong side, about 5 mm, and press. Then measure your elastic, mine was 1 centimeter. So I'm going to make a mark 2.5 centimeters from the folded edge and fold again right there. Press here and that creates our elastic casing, perfectly spaced. Sew 1 millimeter from the edge and don't forget to do a backstitch. Leave about 3 centimeters unsewn. Insert the elastic into your newly made casing with a safety pin. Evenly distribute the gathering inside our casing to make the sleeve edge really pretty. And sew up the ends of the elastic. Then finish it up by closing the opening of the casing. Start 3 centimeters away from the double notches at the back of the sleeve. Make a gathering or basting stitch seam at the top of the sleeve cup with a stitch length of 4 to 5, and stop 3 centimeters away from the front mark of the sleeve. Pull the thread to create some nice gathering. Pin the sleeve into the armhole right sides together. Match the back marks, the side seams, the front marks, and make sure that the shoulder point mark of the sleeve matches the shoulder seam. Sew the sleeve into the armhole and serge. And look at our beautifully gathered sleeve. Most of the gathering should be at the shoulder point of the sleeve to create fullness just at that top center point, and press the seam allowances towards the sleeves. And do the same to your other sleeve. Apply interfacing to the back neckline facing and to the front placket. Just so you know, to make things easier, I'll be calling this interfaced placket facing from now on. Sew the shoulder seams of the facing and the placket. Press the shoulder seams and cool them down. If you need to, here you can even out the edges by cutting off any excess. Place the placket details right sides together and pin together the inward edge. And sew. Trim the seam allowances of the neckline to 4 millimeters and clip the curved seam allowances of the back neckline as well as the front corners. Turn the placket right side up and understitch the facing placket. This will prevent it from rolling out and keep the seam allowances in place. Cut the corners to make a neater fold. Press the placket and cool it down with a clapper. Place the placket and the dress right sides together and pin the placket to the dress, matching all of the marks. This would include the shoulder seams center back of the dress with the center back of the placket. Sew the placket to the dress and trim the seam allowances. Clip the neckline curve here as well. And serge the facing edge. Place the facing and the placket right sides together and pin and sew the bottom corner of the placket. Sew from the wrong side. Turn out the corners and use a pin to get that really nice sharp edge. You might need to clip the corner inside as well. Fold the serged edge to the wrong side 1 cm, press and sew. Press the hem of the dress and cool it down with a clapper. Then press the plank seam as well. Pin the facing to the dress along the entire length of the placket seam. Press to solidify the shape. And here's another tip. I like using glass head pins in my work so I can always press over them without worrying about ruining them or my fabric. Top stitch the placket. And guess what? Press again. You're going to have to love pressing during the sewing process. Place the first buttonhole mark at the V-neck corner of the placket on the right side. Then place a mark at the same level as the first ruffle. After this, divide the distance in half and make a third mark for the buttonhole. Then divide this distance in half and use it to distribute your other 5 buttonholes. Or you can use the paper pattern pieces to help you mark the buttonholes as an option. Choose the shape of your buttonhole on your machine and get out your buttonhole machine foot. Feed your button into the machine foot as this will automatically size your buttonhole. Place the buttonhole foot into your machine and pull down on the buttonhole lever. Practice on a scrap piece of fabric beforehand to get the hang of it. Here I'm using contrasting threads so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. Sew your buttonholes. After you have made your buttonholes, make the holes. There are two methods. You can do it with scissors or with a seam ripper. I prefer doing it with a seam ripper as I feel more control with it, but see what feels better for you. Just be careful not to cut right through the fabric. Now we're going to mark the placement of the buttonholes for our buttons. Take the plackets together, lining them up, and put a pin at the center of your buttonhole. Open up the right placket, and here we're going to have the pins that mark exactly where we need to sew our buttons. Sew the buttons at these marks. And give your beautiful garment a finishing press, cooling it down to give it a professional look. And we are done with our charming Margot dress. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this inspires you to sew a beautiful dress for yourself. You will find the sewing pattern to this dress linked in the description. Happy sewing!